The government continue to recognize, support, and invest in the constituency of Chester St. Margaret's. Recognize the honourable member for Chester St. Margaret's.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to rise in the House this evening and speak on an issue of the utmost importance to me and indeed to all Nova Scotians. The beautiful, resourceful, and healthy South Shore constituency of Chester St. Margaret's. Mr. Speaker, on June 21st, 2005, I was honoured to have been elected as the Progressive Conservative member of the Legislative Assembly for Chester St. Margaret's. Mr. Speaker, you know, as do all members of this House, that no candidate runs, let alone wins, a campaign by themselves. It takes a tremendous amount of hard work on the part of many individuals, all who generously donate their time to take part in the democratic process. So, Mr. Speaker, on this, my first opportunity to speak at length in this House, my maiden speech, I would like to publicly express my most sincere and heartfelt thanks to all those who worked tirelessly on my behalf during the nomination and election campaigns. And, Mr. Speaker, to my honourable colleagues on this side of the House who took time out of their busy schedules to come to Chester St. Margaret's and support me on the doorsteps and at events, I offer my humble gratitude. Mr. Speaker, to my family who gave their full support from the get-go, to my partner Gerald, my children Jordan, Caitlin, Dylan, and Mackenzie, and certainly not to forget the man who inspired it all, my father Ken. My thanks and love. Unfortunately, my mother passed away in January before she was able to see me carry on the family tradition. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure she was smiling when I wore her gold legislative pin on my lapel here in the House on my very first day, as my father watched with pride from the gallery. And finally, Madam Speaker, to the constituents of Chester St. Margaret's, who have entrusted me with the task of representing them in the government of Nova Scotia, a huge thank you and my commitment to do my very best to serve them. Now, Madam Speaker, I know you have traveled to the South Shore on many occasions, and I would encourage all of our colleagues here in the House to visit us frequently. And I'm confident, Madam Speaker, that you would concur that the beauty of the Chester St. Margaret's riding rivals any area in Nova Scotia. East from Bayside, west to Martins River, and north to the county line past New Ross, Madam Speaker, and all of the communities in between, from Peggy's Cove to Hubbard's and Chester to Western Shore. The natural beauty of the rugged coastline is equal only to the rich inland and forest areas. Yet the beauty of the riding is only one factor, Madam Speaker, which helps to attract millions of tourists to the region each year and certainly contributes millions to the local economy. The culture, traditions, and lifestyle of the residents of the South Shore account for a lot of the credit. With a thriving forestry industry, a viable fishery, numerous industries such as GN Plastics, Louisiana Pacific, Novotel, and Composite Atlantic, to name but a few, along with that huge tourism industry I mentioned a moment ago, and a vibrant, growing small business sector, Chester St. Margaret's is one of the most diverse ridings in the province. Madam Speaker, if I may, I would like to speak for a few moments on the healthy economy of the area and perhaps shed some light on why we are indeed in such good shape. Born and raised on a dairy farm in the beautiful Musquodoboit Valley, Madam Speaker, I knew all too well about the seasons as they pertained to crops and herd maintenance. But it wasn't until I moved to the balsam fir capital of the world, Lunenburg County, that I realized there was indeed a tree season. And that season is quickly upon us again, Madam Speaker. The Christmas tree industry in Nova Scotia provides over $30 million to the economy, and with approximately 2/3 of that coming out of Lunenburg, Queens counties, it is certainly fair for me to say that millions of dollars are generated each year from the industry in my riding. Not only does this industry account for millions of dollars that contribute to the local as well as the provincial economy, it also employs thousands of individuals and carries on a way of life that has existed for generations. I am proud to say, Madam Speaker, that my family will soon be treeing And while my children aren't nearly as fond of the hard labor that comes along with the season, we are certainly more than proud to know that our Keddy family trees will be decorated in thousands of homes throughout Canada, the eastern U.S., and indeed into the Caribbean as well. Now, Madam Speaker, it's not only our Christmas trees which have garnered us international acclaim in Chester St. Margaret's, and I would challenge any honourable member here in this House who isn't able to identify the picturesque lighthouse scene from Peggy's Cove, truly one of Nova Scotia's gems. And Madam Speaker, I would add that Chester St. Margaret's has yet another internationally recognizable icon, for who does not know of the famous treasure hunt that has been underway on Oak Island for over 200 years. Now, Madam Speaker, I would argue that the true treasure, the real gold of Oak Island, is the mystery of the island itself. In the immortal words of Alistair McGillivray in that famous Nova Scotia song that I grew up listening to, sung by various individuals over the years, and over the ashes the stories are told of witches and werewolves and Oak Island gold. The island is truly a valuable part of our folklore and cultural heritage. Madam Speaker, opening Oak Island for public access would be a great asset to our province. Its location between Lunenburg and Chester on the Lighthouse route gives the island a ready-made tourist infrastructure. It is one of the few sites of historic and cultural significance in Nova Scotia that remains inaccessible to tourists. In fact, Madam Speaker, a study partially sponsored by the province concluded that Oak Island has the potential to be among the top 10 tourist draws in Nova Scotia, putting it in the echelon of Peggy's Cove, Citadel Hill, and Lunenburg. Opening access to Oak Island also opens the doors for private sector participation in tourism-related industries on the island. The surrounding community of Western Shore would benefit from increased tourist interest in the area and from the economic spin-offs that entails. Madam Speaker, a developed tourist centre on the island would offer jobs for tour guides, interpreters, groundskeepers. If indeed the island could reach its full potential of over 80,000 visitors a year, the economic activity it could generate would be significant. Madam Speaker, I personally don't have the expertise to develop a tourism strategy for the island beyond getting it safely into the hands of the province. The Department of Tourism, shore tourism interests, and local stakeholders can best determine what needs to be done. But, Madam Speaker, I am sure the study is correct in its assertion that an interactive site that explores the many different theories about the mystery of Oak Island would be a major tourist attraction. Madam Speaker, there aren't many mysteries left in our world. Oak Island has captured the imaginations of people of all ages and backgrounds from all corners of the globe. Whether you think there's a treasure or artifacts or little green men hiding under the island, there is no doubt that it has intrigued us for many generations. Madam Speaker, I believe that we must find a way to protect this significant site and open it for the doers and dreamers among us to explore. I have been talking to my colleagues about Oak Island since my election, and I have been extremely pleased with the level of interest expressed by the various departments within this government. I very much believe, Madam Speaker, that one of the roles of government is to act as stewards of our culture and historic treasures, and to make those special places accessible to all Nova Scotians. Madam Speaker, I would encourage all members of this House to support me in my quest to have Oak Island remain a Nova Scotian treasure for generations to come. I would like at this time, Madam Speaker, to thank you for this time to speak on matters pertaining to Chester St. Margaret's.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Well, yes, I'm waiting for the love in, but it looks like it's disappearing before me. So, but anyway, first of all, I do want to, on this occasion, the Chamber to congratulate the latest member to come to Province House. And certainly to commend her for her efforts during the by-election in Chester St. Margaret's. However, all is not golden and all is not shining down in Chester St. Margaret's. And certainly, yes, Oak Island is indeed a treasure, but I wondered where her government was last spring when the Blandford Game Sanctuary was delisted. And in fact, while it was eventually put back on the list, you do have to remember that in fact it was people and maybe some of your own supporters who were indeed very, very upset at the very thought of delisting. However, it is not yet receiving the final protection that such a treasure should have. And I would hope that the honourable member, in fact, will work to see that this becomes a protected space. The Blandford Sanctuary does, in fact, have some old-growth forest in it, but we all know that this is an area that could also have cuttings and so forth, from that particular area. And in fact, sanctuary is a bit of a misnomer, because there's no guarantee that indeed it will be protected. So that's an area I think that needs to be brought to the attention of the member. And in fact, indeed, it was her rival candidate that in fact orchestrated, along with Brad Armstrong, a very, very significant role in making sure that Blandford Game Sanctuary remained at least listed as a protected space. I also wonder where the member's government was when it came to supporting one of the long-time traditional industries in her riding, and that is Snare's Bakery. Where was her government when trying to keep a very, very, regarded industry in that community? And that's not forgotten, and that will be, I think, a springboard for people to certainly launch forward criticism well into the future. To lose a well-respected family business like Snare's Bakery is indeed a great loss to that community. And it was neither the arm of government, NSBI, nor the Department of Economic Development that would actually come in and try to save the day. So indeed, it's very, very unfortunate. In drawing attention to Oak Island, which certainly indeed does deserve of a great deal of recognition, I would have to say, however, that the record of her government with coastal protection is indeed extremely poor. And in fact, along the South Shore now, there is less and less available land for the public. Most of the islands and a lot of the coastline, in fact, is in private hands. And this is something that has certainly degenerated over the past tenure of this particular government. And Nova Scotians are looking for leadership in this area, and certainly I know our government will again look at bringing forth legislation that will allow for greater access to the coastline of Nova Scotia. The current issue, I think, that the member opposite should be working for is to in fact to to try and get the Office of Lands and Forest reopened in the Chester Grant area. This is going to be closed, and a larger office, perhaps, yes, built in Lunenburg. But we know that the 3 local fire departments are very, very concerned about this particular decision. There is no way that the local fire departments can have the kind of ready response for the potential of a forest fire in this area. And as was stated by the member, certainly the Christmas tree industry and the forest industry generally is a very, very major industry for this area. So without the Lands and Forests Office and the quick response that they can generate, this is indeed a deficiency that this government has allowed to occur. And in fact, the fire departments are now mounting and probably will mount petitions and support from the local community to make sure that that office is reconsidered and possibly reopened. Another area that her government has certainly dropped the ball on is the highway and sidewalk project in the village of Chester. It was going to be an agreement between the village of Chester and the province. And right now, the province has basically washed its hands of this particular deal. In fact, we all know that, this was a project that was about to come to fruition. And we know that we hear from the people in the village of Chester that there are very, very many unhappy and dissatisfied constituents
Order,
on
please.
this particular project. So we'll look for another perhaps announcement here. This seems to be one of the real, opportunistic elements of this government is to announce things 2 and 3 times. So maybe after a false start, maybe something will come of this project. But at the current time, certainly the residents of Chester have not seen any action on this particular project. When it comes to paving, while we did see a little bit of pre-election effort, certainly this is an area where the honourable member could join with our party in Road of the Week. Because I've been down to the Chester-St. Margaret's Bay area, and certainly there are many roads that she could offer which have been neglected through 6 years of Tory MLAs. And that really brings me around to the resolution today that the government continue to recognize, support, and invest in the constituency of Chester-St. Margaret's. And I almost interpret, and in fact I do interpret that as a plea that there's been, in fact, a great overlooking of this particular riding by this government, and of course, with an election coming up within the next 12 months, she's making kind of a desperate plea that there will be reconsideration. Of course, we know Snares Bakery is gone. We know that the roads are in bad shape in that area, especially the secondary to rural roads. Are indeed, like the other 35 rural constituencies across the province, which have huge deficiencies, and after losing the Lands and Forests Office there, and no action on the Chester project, yes, the honourable member does indeed have her work cut out for her, and with that, I will take my place.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too look forward to sharing a few of my thoughts on this particular resolution. I want members to know I'm pleased to have the new member from Chester St. Margaret's in this House. Her energy and her commitment is not going to allow her to be one of those wallflowers in the back benches. She's not going to be a bump on the log that just votes as she's told. because after all, based upon her reputation and her family's reputation and what they are as politicians in other areas and in other municipalities, we're going to see a different approach from a backbencher. Perhaps a backbencher will speak up during debates. A backbencher who, when a topic is brought to the floor of this House and she wants to have a speech, she can stand on her feet and participate in a debate. A debate on mental health, for example. A debate with has strong opinions on some of the smoking laws that we're considering. Perhaps a debate on social workers. Anything involving education. I hope that the new member does not believe that the hammer comes down and she is there simply to stand and vote as she is told, because that's the reputation of what backbenchers have done in that government from the year that they were elected, how many long, long years ago. So I want to take a couple of points here. First of all, the riding of Chester St. Margaret's does not begin in Peggy's Cove. It begins at the Shad Bay Bridge that's in bad need of repair, something that I've gone after the Department of Transportation on many times. And if you take that road from Shad Bay over to the Dovers and you go by McGraw's Cove, Blind Bay, you see, Mr. Speaker, that part of Chester St. Margaret's was once part of my constituency. And it's personal. It's my constituency, because that section of the road and issues that are brought to me by people from those villages, they constantly bring up the fact of difficulties with bus stops, difficulties with issues in their community, difficulties with things such as assessments. And Mr. Speaker, you should know, and I want the member from Chester St. Margaret's to know, they are calling me. I am saying to them, I want you to know that I am no longer your MLA. Mr. Chataway, God bless John, Mr. Chataway is no longer, of course, the MLA, and you have a new MLA, and I give out the number of the member from Chester St. Margaret's, but they still call me. I go for their assessments. When there's an assessment problem in Blind Bay, and they're going to appeal that assessment, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, excuse me, I am the one who goes and says, I want to make the case for assessments. I want this assessment appealed. Because this particular political party has a strong reputation when it comes to assessments. That political party does not have that reputation. Much of that should be credited to the other members of my caucus. Because let me tell you, there's a burning issue in the riding of Chester St. Margaret's. And we can talk about roads, and we can talk about snares. And, you know, I want to table the letter from my good friend from Hants East to Minister Hurlbert concerning the closure of the Chester Grant Depot. Those are all issues that we can bring up and score political points on. But I want to bring an issue up of long-standing concern in my constituency and coastal constituencies across this province. And the member from Kings West sort of touched on it, but for various reasons, because of the status of the third party on this issue, he said private landowners own coastal properties around this province. That's not the issue, Mr. Speaker, and that member knows that. The issue is that non-residents own coastal properties. Non-residents are buying up islands. Non-residents continue, Madam Speaker, to make sure that they are the first in line when there's an island for sale. So let me tell you, when I saw this in the Chester Clipper, a paper I've subscribed to, and when I saw that the member and I'll table this in just a moment, that when I saw that the member was pushing for the purchase of Oak Island, my first response, $7 million well spent. $7 million that I'm sure that Nova Scotians from one end of this province would agree with. But it's not just high-profile islands such as Oak Island. I can take the member through some of the islands in St. Margaret's Bay. In fact, I can put her on the water and point the ones out, those islands that are no longer in the control of Nova Scotians, no longer in control of Canadians. They're in control of non-residents who've come in and taken these wonderful accessible beachfront areas away from us. And now they are, of course, for various reasons, putting up no trespassing, private beach. Those things in our province just cannot be allowed to continue. And I look forward to working with the member opposite on that very controversial topic. And I want the member opposite to know this is a topic that has been discussed on the floor of this legislature many times. When the Liberal Party sat there and we questioned them on that issue, it was not a problem. Now when we raise the same question again, it's not a problem. Well, I know that young member over there is going to be in contact with people along the coast, and they will tell you it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem because of not just access to the coast, because of the resulting problems when it comes to assessments. Now recently, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to table this too, recently there was a mail-out that was circulated through Timberley Prospect and a lot of NDP ridings around the province. This deals with, or it asks the question, rhetorical, are you worried about skyrocketing, there's a word we've used a lot in this business, you notice, skyrocketing gas prices, skyrocketing power bills, skyrocketing heating costs. And this went out to 8,200 homes in the riding of Timberley Prospect. But Madam Speaker, part of the difficulty is that because the member from Chester St. Margaret's and I share a road, we're literally on one side of the road, it's in Timberley Prospect, and on the other side of the road, it's Chester St. Margaret's. You know, one of those lines that's driven down through a community. Well, I've received calls in my office today from people in certain areas of the Hammonds Plains Road, down the Peggy's Cove Road, who've said to me in my office, Bill, where's my notice? I didn't get a notice. What's wrong? How come I didn't get a notice? And I've said to them, well, I'll have to make some of them available to you, I guess. So there will be some in the community that I represent. The new St. Margaret's Arena, the St. Margaret's Centre, renovated, is actually in the riding of Chester St. Margaret's. It's just on the other side of the road. The new high school is just across the road. But I want the member opposite to know that when it comes to political lines, there are many things that we have to work together on. So, I mean, when the mail-out comes out and it ends up in mailboxes and people say to their neighbors, did you guys get that mail-out from Darrell Dexter? His name's actually used in that, Madam Speaker. I refer to, of course, the member from Cole Harbour. And when people are asking for that particular piece of information, that says to me, here we have a concern. Here we have a problem that Nova Scotians want to know about. It's nothing to do with political lines. It's nothing to do with a line on the map. It's one of those things that we have to continue as MLAs to work together to face. So I know the member opposite is aware of the fact that her particular political party doesn't have all the answers. This political party and the members of the Liberal Party, we don't have all the answers. We don't profess to be that way. But let me tell you, the one thing that I've learned, and I learned it from George Moody and I learned it from John Leaf, two men who I have a great deal of time for. Both of those men, of course, spent many years in here. And I remember when George said to me one night, as we were going through a late debate and I was fired up on something or other, he said to me, the microphones work just well, Bill. You don't have to yell. And secondly, slow down and enjoy the experience. You have much to learn. The political system in this province will teach us all some very hard lessons, lessons that are going to be based upon the political realities of this province. I welcome the new member to this legislature. I encourage her to take George Moody's advice to make sure you slow down and enjoy the process. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. The time allotted for late debate is expired, and I thank all the honourable members for their participation. The House will meet again at 12 noon tomorrow.